So technically, this is somewhat older news in that this was first reported on in mid-July of 2022, but it came up in the news cycle over the last few days as the OGL scandal is continuing to unfold with Wizards of the Coast. And one of the reasons is because Roll20 is one of the companies that is signed up in favor of and on board with the ORC RPG Alliance that is being formed by Paizo and these other 1,500 plus companies. Roll20 is one of those companies. Now, Roll20 has always held an interesting position in the virtual tabletop space because it's one of the more, I would argue, and I think most people would agree with me, it's one of the more easily accessible VTT programs out there if you've never played before. It's very easy to get into. They've got a free version. You can just roll up and start doing stuff without needing to learn anything because the system is fairly self-explanatory. Now, that being said, when the new CEO took over, I want to say a year or two ago, it's been a couple of years, I think, at this point, when one of their first announcements was, we're going to make a series of tutorials to help Roll20 become even better than it is and to help make that ease of use even better. Now, I've tried Roll20. I started off with Roll20 and then I eventually researched Foundry VTD, saw some things that I liked, some things that I was like meh on, and eventually discovered Fantasy Grounds, which is where ultimately my brother and I and Chris decided that we were going to go in terms of the tabletop that we used for our homebrew live streams for everything related to the Weave and the Void, which is that world map behind me, for those of you who've been paying attention for a long term. In any case, one of the reasons we moved away from Roll20 was because Roll20 at some point had some limitations on it that I felt personally I was getting better. I was getting more for my money with Fantasy Grounds. Now, Roll20 has been working very hard to improve its offerings over the last couple of years, and in light of the current conversation that's happening with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and virtual tabletops and WOTC's stupid VTT policy and everything else. Like I said, this popped up back in the news again, and I was reminded that this actually happened, and I wanted to bring it forward here on my YouTube channel and discuss a little bit. So basically, Roll20 and OneBookShelf are in the midst of a merger that's going to ease the play of tabletop RPG creations for VTT programs, specifically Roll20. This is a joint venture, and OneBookShelf is known primarily as the technology behind DriveThruRPG, the Dungeon Masters Guild, and many other storefronts. Now, in this case, Roll20 and them are joining forces to create a better purchase and play experience between these two services in particular. And this is part of the strategy that Roll20 has to help make themselves a more viable contender in the VTT space and to improve their offerings, which I think is a great move because I never disliked Roll20, but I found that for me, Fantasy Grounds offered more of what I was looking for in terms of accessibility and some other things as well. So the press release that was sent out talked about basically this is going to be a combination of the two, and it's going to be for people who are using Roll20 as well as the OneBookShelf's digital file storefronts. And this new technology is something that's going to add PDF support to Roll20's interface, which is going to allow users to easily add, share, and use any supported digital files from inside an already running game. Future integration additional features are apparently in the works. This is a pretty big deal all told, according to this article. This is from Dicebreaker, by the way. It said Roll20's user base has exploded over the past few years, buoyed by the pandemic, but also the sustained popularity at the time of D&D's 5th edition. It went from think about this growth for a minute. It went from 2 million users to over 10 million users in the 2022 calendar year. That is a massive amount of growth. Like you're talking 8 million new users started using Roll20 in one single year. That's crazy. Also, all of the other sister sites, DriveThruRPG, Dungeon Masters Guild, etc., also are in there neck and neck, so to speak, providing a digital platform where you can get your rule books and adventures and supplements and other tools in the digital space from those places as well. And it says here in the article, joining their services feels like a no-brainer that will cut down the amount of work or put on individuals to create a seamless experience for their groups. The CEO of Roll20, Ankit Lal, said, joining forces with OneBookShelf creates the best place to purchase, peruse, and play TTRPGs online, period. Since 2012, Roll20 has been the industry leader in the VTT space. Absolutely true. Hosting content from some of the biggest publishers in the space, including Wizards of the Coast, Paizo, and KSCM. With this deal, we gain significant progress in several of our user promises that dramatically improve the VTT and will work together to continue adding new and exciting features to our already industry-leading platform. And I get it. Some people out there are like, no, Foundry VT is a better program. And other people like me are going to say, oh, Fantasy Grounds is a better program. For me, it's a better program. And I at least am not I don't have my head so far up Fantasy Grounds ass that I will sit here and say that it's a industry leading program in the same way that Roll20 is. It's not. Fantasy Ground is a smaller market. Foundry VT, smaller market in comparison to what Roll20 has as far as the user base goes. Everybody's got their own preferred VTT program, but just because you like yours and think yours is better doesn't make it the industry leader. And that's one of the things that Foundry VT, or excuse me, Roll20 has had now, is that massive amount of users, and it's been around, I think, longer than all of them. Somebody correct me on if that's not true, but I think it's been around since before any of them. In any case, they also announced a deal with the Dungeon Masters Guild in June of 2022 that will allow the sale of user-created content from within Roll20's interface. I don't know if that's still in place now because of the chaos surrounding the OGL. I don't know. But it looks here that OneBookShelf libraries will eventually be integrated with Roll20 in a similar way to those explained in the DM's Guild agreement, which will ensure the associated PDFs won't count towards the storage quotas that Roll20 allots individual accounts. It's very interesting. Steve Wyack, OneBookShelf CEO, said our mission from the get-go has always been to make it easier for publishers and creators to reach a wider audience of role-playing fans. By combining forces with Roll20, we empower game makers to present content across a wider variety of formats, whether character creators, virtual, tabletop, digital editions, or print. Customers will be able to support their favorite games in any format they desire with one economical purchase, and they'll be able to use their content on role-playing's most trusted platform. Groovy. This is all the way back in July. Does anyone know out there who's watching this video who can provide me with more information in the comments below? Because this is all the way back from in July, and it says here that a company spokesperson clarified in an email to Dicebreaker that the companies are going to continue operating independently for a short while longer, but plan to combine later in 2022 into a joint venture led by Ankit Lal as CEO and Steve Wyack as president. A timeline was not provided. And it said here, it's not clear if both entities are going to keep their current branding moving forward. Dun, 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 dun. In a short video provided to Dicebreaker, which can also be seen in this post, I'm going to put that link down there for everybody. A user is shown dragging a PDF directly from their desktop and into a running Roll20 game. The file uploads, Roll20's interface runs a virus scan on it, and then it populates within the game's library as a usable asset. If all the processes will be just as seamless, users can expect a fair few of the rough edges that come with playing tabletop RPGs online to enjoy some smoothing out. So this is the huge thing for me. If they can make that work, that's one of the complaints I have about, say, Fantasy Grounds or Foundry VTT, because even though I haven't played Foundry VTT, I've seen it, I've watched tutorials, I've had a recent discussion with someone who showed me theirs on the back end on theirs as a DM. And one of the things that, looking at Fantasy Grounds in particular is like importing a PDF into Fantasy Grounds is never a seamless drag and drop. There's a ton of formatting that you have to do if you're going to do it yourself. Now, you can buy modules from the Fantasy Grounds store where someone has already done the conversions for you. And when you purchase those modules that have been converted and you plug those in to your Fantasy Grounds, then you have all of that ease of access stuff. The maps are there, the encounters are already set up, all the NPCs are there, the monsters for all the encounters are there, the maps are there, everything is there for that module, and it's super easy to then click through that PDF. It's not a PDF at that point, it's a converted file, but it's converted into the Fantasy Ground user face. So you can then just go through that module and look for the different sections and all the things that you need to run that campaign. It's all available at the click of a button. But that's never been that way to import your own PDF. Importing PDFs has always been a huge pain in the ass because you have to do it all manually. So if the solution that Roll20 is coming up with OneBookShelf is this seamless, and they said, I believe is this the one that I picked up on? Yeah, This is the preview of the PDF on a VT experience, which will soon be rolling out in beta. So they upload it, it virus scans, it processes the PDF, boom, it's all right there. That right there is super cool, because if that actually works the way they want it to work, you're going to have to catch up. Like Foundry VTD and Fantasy Grounds are going to have to catch up. If Fantasy Grounds already has, if Foundry VTD has already caught up, let me know in the comments below. I don't use Foundry VTD, so I can't speak to that. I know that Fantasy Grounds doesn't offer this. So this is what is making this such a big deal in my mind in terms of making that Roll20 experience even better, because that was one of the things before, was it wasn't as seamless of an experience as it could be. It says here, it's worth repeating a warning from the recent merger of CFB Group and TCG Player. Consolidation is ultimately bad for the consumer. Virtual tabletop space has experienced rapid growth and diversification in the last few years, opening up different ways to tell collaborative stories beyond a table in the world. So they offer a cautionary note here about monopolies. And I'm really interested. I would be really interested to see if this merger is. Can we do a quick Google search? Let me look here. Roll20 and OneBookShelf merger. Did it actually go through? I don't know why that popped up. Huh. Sorry, I got a weird pop-up while I'm going through here. I don't see any. Hang on. August 31st. But see, that was right after. I don't see any press since then off of a quick Google search for the Roll20 and OneBookShelf merger. I don't see any press. Like, the latest thing I see is August 31st, 2022. So if any out there have information about the completion of this, let me know. Maybe it's still ongoing. It could be on pause because of the current chaos surrounding the OGL. I don't know. But it looks to be very interesting, and if it's still going through, I wholly support this, and I hope it's still going through. In any case, if you guys like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. Don't forget you can support down below. It's super easy. Just hit that super chat on live streams and premieres. And don't forget you can do super thanks after the fact. We have a membership option here on YouTube, and of course the Patreon page for our own tabletop fantasy world and point and click adventure game, plus the Discord. All the links are down there. Happy gaming. See everybody in the next episode.